In the early 19th century, the United States of America was still a fragile experiment, a republic born out of revolution trying to prove to the world that democracy could work. But in 1824, that experiment nearly collapsed in scandal. 4 men, all from the same political party, battled for the presidency. One man won the most votes, another walked away with the prize, and behind it all, whispers of a corrupt bargain that shocked a young nation and made the world doubt the promise of popular government. This is the story of America's first truly contested presidential election, an election that revealed the flaws in the Constitution, fractured the unity of a nation, and birthed the modern political system we still live with today. But the story does not belong to America alone. Around the world, in the halls of European monarchies, in the revolutionary streets of Latin America, in the salons of political thinkers, the scandal of 1824 was watched with fascination. For some, it was proof that democracy was corrupt. For others, it was a sign that the people's voice could never be silenced. To understand how the world reacted, we must first return to the America of the 1820s, a nation of 13 million people, restless, expanding, divided, a land where the promise of liberty was real, but unevenly distributed. The year is 1820. The United States has just celebrated the end of the War of 1812. To many, it is a time of triumph, of unity, of what would be called the era of good feelings. But beneath the surface, the nation is anything but calm. The country is growing, westward, endlessly westward. Settlers pour into the frontier, carving farms out of wilderness. Cotton dominates the South, fueling an economy built on the backs of enslaved people. The North is industrializing, its cities swelling with workers. The West demands recognition. The South defends slavery, and the East, with its old families, clings to power. For Native Americans, this is a time of devastation. Lands promised to them in treaties are stripped away piece by piece as white settlers push across the Appalachians. The expansion that excites politicians in Washington brings only loss and displacement to those who were here. First, Andrew Jackson, a fiery general from Tennessee, embodies this expansion. A man celebrated as a hero of the Battle of New Orleans and feared as a ruthless warrior who crushed Native resistance. To his supporters, he is the very image of the American common man rising to greatness. To his critics, he is dangerous, unpredictable, even tyrannical. But America is not alone in turmoil. Across the Atlantic, Europe is reeling from the aftershocks of the Napoleonic Wars. Monarchs have restored their thrones, determined to crush revolutionary movements. In Latin America, Simón Bolívar and other leaders are fighting to free colonies from Spanish rule. To them, the United States is a model, a flawed model, but a model nonetheless. The world is watching. Can this young republic, barely 50 years old, avoid the fate of other experiments in liberty? Or will it fall victim to corruption, faction, and civil strife? The answer would begin to unfold in the election of 1824. The election of 1824 was unlike any that had come before. 4 men, each from the same party, vied for the presidency. The Federalist Party had collapsed, leaving the Democratic Republicans as the only major force in politics. But unity was an illusion. Beneath the surface, the party had fractured into factions, personalities, and rival visions of America's future. Each candidate was more than a man. Each represented a region, a philosophy, and a hope or fear for the future of the nation. First, Andrew Jackson. To his followers, he was a hero. To his enemies, a menace. Born in the Carolina backcountry, orphaned by war, scarred by poverty, Jackson rose from obscurity to national fame. He fought duels, brawled with rivals, and lived by a code of honor that made him both admired and feared. His greatest triumph came in 1815 at the Battle of New Orleans, when his ragtag army crushed the British. News of the victory spread across the globe, transforming Jackson into a living legend. In a young America hungry for heroes, Jackson became the embodiment of national pride. But he was not merely a war hero. Jackson spoke to the common man, to farmers and frontiersmen who felt ignored by the elites in Washington. He had little education, but immense charisma. He had no polished speeches, but a fiery will. His supporters called him Old Hickory, tough, unbending, unbreakable. Yet Jackson's record was controversial. His campaigns against Native Americans were brutal, his temper legendary. Critics feared he would rule like a general, not a president. To them, Jackson was no guardian of democracy, but a dangerous demagogue, a man who might trade liberty for power. Opposite Jackson stood John Quincy Adams. Born into privilege, son of the second president, John Adams, he was the very image of New England's elite. Brilliant, educated, fluent in multiple languages, Adams spent his life in diplomacy, serving in Europe, negotiating treaties, and securing America's place on the world stage. He was a man of thought, not of charisma. Cold, reserved, and often seen as arrogant, Adams inspired respect, but rarely affection. He believed in national unity and federal power to build roads, canals, and schools. Where Jackson embodied the will of the people, Adams embodied the power of government to shape a nation. But his intelligence was also his burden. He could not connect with ordinary voters. He lectured when others persuaded. He preached when others inspired. In a world moving toward mass democracy, Adams was a man out of place, an Enlightenment thinker caught in the storm of populist politics. Then there was Henry Clay of Kentucky, orator, dealmaker, charmer. Clay was called the Great Compromiser for his ability to forge agreements in Congress. Tall, commanding, with a voice that could fill any hall, he was beloved in the West and respected across the nation. Clay championed what he called the American system, a vision of protective tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements to bind the regions together. He dreamed of a powerful modern America, united by commerce and industry. But Clay was also ambitious. He had sought the presidency before, and he sought it again in 1824. His rivals respected his talents, but many distrusted his hunger for power. When the election came, his role would prove decisive and controversial. The fourth candidate was William H. Crawford of Georgia, a veteran politician, former senator, and secretary of the Treasury. Crawford represented the old Jeffersonian school: states' rights, limited government, suspicion of federal power. But fate dealt him a cruel hand. Stricken by a severe illness in 1823, Crawford was left partially paralyzed and nearly blind. Though his allies insisted he could still serve, his health cast a shadow over his campaign. In the end, he was less a contender than a reminder of a fading era. 4 men, 4 visions. A war hero, a diplomat, a compromiser, and a relic of the past. Each believed he had the right to lead. Each claimed to represent the will of the people. But in truth, they represented something larger, the deep divisions of America itself. When the campaign began, it would be unlike any in American history. For the first time, the people, not just the elites, would play a decisive role. And the world was watching. This story isn't just told for fun, but for enlightenment and for our kids to know more about what had happened in their absence. This is where the pen stops and the lips rest for now, so stay tuned, follow, like, comment, and subscribe for the continuation of this wonderful piece of history as we journey together through it. See you soon in the next video.